the mountain right here will quite literally swallow you up. Is that because there's a secret alien base inside of it? Well, that's what a CIA operative thought back in the 70s. Let's talk about it. This is Mount 9, Ghana and Zimbabwe, and I'm so sorry if I said that incorrectly, but it's made more than a few people vanish in its time. Locals believe that there is a vindictive spirit that lives on this mountain, and if you stray off the trail or disrespect nature in any way, shape, form, or fashion, you will quite literally vanish off of the face of the earth. Now, this mountain is 8,504 foot tall, which makes it the tallest mountain in Zimbabwe, and you cannot climb it without a tour guide, and there are a shit ton of rules, like no laughing, no commenting on the mountain, and you damn sure don't take anything. Basically, again, you respect the mountain and it will let you live. And of course, like anything, there is a reason for these rules. Back in 1981, 2 little girls were climbing the mountain when they completely vanished, and these little girls weren't just any little girls. They were daughters of government officials, so you know there was a search popping off in the 80s for them.
First of all, what was they doing up there climbing by themselves? Seemed irresponsible to me.
They didn't find a single trace. Or in 2014, when a British tourist went missing on the mountain and they brought helicopters in, there were local rituals done, and they still did not find a trace of this man. So what is causing these people to vanish while they are on this mountain? Could it be a secret UFO base, or could it just be nature and you take a risk anytime you climb a mountain, whether it's Lookout Mountain or a mountain in Zimbabwe? What even gives me the idea that there is a UFO base inside of this mountain? Well, back in the 1970s, a very skilled remote viewer and a CIA operative named Pat Price remote viewed 4 different locations that had alien bases inside of them. This is one of those locations. And here's proof that Pat Price was working with the CIA on a operational status as of April of 1975. Here's the gag. 3 months later, Pat Price was unalive, very mysteriously.
TikTok, this is a joke. SpaceX just wants to make us laugh. It is satire only.
Now, I know that can't be real. It looked like a 2-year-old did that for an arts project. I don't know. It looked like they were just doing that for a movie set. This can't be SpaceX or nobody professional. I believe so.
Stay tuned for our next launch. This one's called the Mark of the Beast 2000. This is satire for entertainment purposes only.
If I saw a giant bat like this in person, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. And you know, these things are real. This is...
I don't think I have a chance to freak out because I'd be cutting out of there.
Some Hollywood prop. This is a real giant bat. They're called giant golden crowned flying foxes. Flying foxes. That's a bat, baby. That's a bat. And these things are all around the Philippines. Good news for us, they don't eat people yet. They mostly eat fruit.
I don't know. I think if the fruit got scarce and we was the only source of food, I think they'd sacrifice.
But even with that aside, if I see some giant bat hanging upside down, like 3 to 5 feet tall, like I said before, I'm freaking out, baby. I'm freaking out. So my question is this. If you saw one of these bats hanging upside down, skeet-scatting and shab-dabbing, are you seriously telling me this wouldn't freak you out? Because it sure would freak me out. But the people in the Philippines, they deal with this every day. I'm telling you, I'll stick with the guy in the corner in downtown Reno, screaming at the sky 24/7 before I deal with one of those giant bats. Okay, Booshkies, I just wanted to share that with you. Shabadoo!
Scientists reveal the shape of a single photon for the first time ever. And this is a huge deal because if any of you know anything about quantum physics, you know that photons are notoriously difficult to conceptualize because they have both the properties of a particle and a wave, and when you observe them, they behave differently. But scientists have been able to get an image of one, or so this article would lead you to believe. Now, you would think that this would be a picture of a photon under an extremely powerful electron microscope. Rather, this is an extremely powerful computer rendering the shape and internal structure of a photon according to a very fascinating but well backed up new theory of quantum mechanics. So
basically it's the AI generated image, because how would you be able to capture an image of a photon? Because you got to have light reflecting off something, and I don't think light reflects off of light. I don't know.
Love the way that it looks. I'm going to zoom all the way in on this thing. It's so massive. You can actually see some of these little rings on the internal structure and internal nucleus. It almost looks like the iris of an eye, or perhaps some sort of small fruit. I think it's very cool and it's very neat, but I was a little disappointed to hear that this wasn't like a real picture, but rather an artist's conceptualization. But let's talk about what it is they're trying to conceptualize here with this computer rendering. It's basically a new mathematical theory that groups different
Does this look familiar to you, this shape? If you were thinking about a Templar cross, you would be wrong, because this apparently is the shape of a photon. Just a couple of days ago, they posted another photo of what they perceive to be a photon, and it looks like an eye, but here is the kicker. Remember this? Remember these four structures? Look at the eye. The eye has four muscles surrounding it, and a lot of spiritual people have already made the connection that the eye looks like the Templar cross, which coincidentally also looks like what a photon would look like. And it doesn't help that the new image of a photon also looks almost exactly like an eye. So the Knights Templar were actually a Christian crusade organization. And the Templar cross, again, looks like the photon. Now, what connection am I trying to make here? If you look at what Christianity truly stands for, it means Christ consciousness, Christos consciousness. Christ means inner light. This is why we always say inner light. The light of Christ is the divine energy, power, or influence that proceeds from God through Christ and gives life and light to all things. Now, before I get into the history of the Templars were originally supposed to be a good brotherhood organization, but obviously you know how everything plays out. It gets infiltrated. We can't have anything good here. But I relate this back to the photon because of light. Everything is about light. Why is it that the one main source that gives light to things, called the photon, looks like a Templar cross? Looks like the human eye. The muscles around the human eye. Also now actually looks like an eye. I don't care how many of you skeptics out there are saying that I'm reading too deep into this. If anything, if you're overly skeptical about everything, you're just stubborn and you need to open up your mind more. Sometimes these things are not coincidences. It's literally just the universe or nature repeating itself, giving you hints and clues. Remember, your eyes are the organs to your perception along with your brain. Eyes take in light. This is why in English we say I. The letter I, if you want to think about it, correlates to E-Y-E. Your perception really influences your reality. Before you come at me, oh, the English language is not the only language that exists on planet Earth. I know that, but the English language is very occultic. It has a lot of clues and symbolism, and that's why we use it in spirituality. According to a lot of spiritualists, if you take in the sun rays, like the rays from the sun, frequency from the sun rays actually activate your pineal gland. Now, a lot of this information has been hidden from us, all these synchronicities, these important esoteric knowledge.
How y'all feel about this? Y'all feel like she got some good traction on this? Any proof in the pudding you think she got, or you think it's all speculation? Leave your thoughts down in the comments.
And this is because the ones in control don't want us to realize that it goes a lot deeper than the surface level stuff that they're teaching us.
Oh. Carrying a big cockroach. I wonder what they about to do to him. Who did that?
Someone actually caught a cat wrestling a fairy on camera. Check this out, y'all.
Not something you see every day. A duende in the clutches of a cat. This happened in Ecuador and is actually...
Whoa, now. Y'all think this CGI? He tussling and trying to get away, and that cat look like he having the best time of his life.
Very impressive footage.
That cat's
Pay
definitely
close
playing
attention
with
to
something.
Wednesday, pixie, fairy, little creature as it fights to free itself from the cat. Unfortunately, the cat broke the creature's arm and damaged its leg. But this brave little
How do they know that? How do they know that?
creature manages to break free from the cat and fly off at incredible speed. Watch this.
So a lot of people think this thing is a duende or a fairy. Let me know what you think it is in the comments, and as always, stay weird.
Did y'all know in Brazil there was a couple that planted 2 million trees in 20 years, recreating a forest? This is the before picture in 2001, and this is the after picture in 2019. And this is the perfect example of using your free will to do what God had you on this earth to do, which is to make everything better. Yeah, they planted more than 2 million trees over the course of 20 years in an effort to resurrect the subtropic paradise existed on Sebastiel's family property when he was a child. He goes along to say that the land was sick as he was and everything around him was destroyed. So then he decided to plant over 290 different species of trees to repopulate the forest. And that just make me sit back and think though, if these two people can do this right here, turn this desert land into a plush forest, just imagine if we all came together as a collective and started to replenish some of these forests that humans done damaged. Now that's something to think about. Y'all let me know what y'all think about Sebastian.
If you knew this in school, you would be the smartest person in your school. That is because this is how everything we study works. It is the concept of oscillation or vibration. Let me show you how it works. Let's break this wave up into a band like our eyes and our ears do. If we take the bottom right corner of the spectrum and connect it with the top left, we can see how these blend into each other. That is how we mix notes in music and colors in art. You are now an artist. That is fun, but what about the not fun stuff, like math? To figure out where any of those balls are, we just need the x and the y measurement. That is trigonometry. If I keep doubling how fast that wave is going, it starts to add these nodes, circles within circles. Enough of these nodes creates the illusion of 3D and the study of spheres. Since we know trigonometry, the trig of all of these circles that make the sphere is calculus and the basis for physics. The interaction of these spheres gives us the torus. The torus shows us how electrons orbit a nucleus, creating these patterns that interact with other patterns, creating matter. You have now unlocked particle physics. Before we get too advanced, we need to go back to the sphere, because the interaction of these spheres is a study in itself. Studying the interaction of spheres gives us geometry. Geometry. From here, we can see how nature uses this, and then use it in our own designs, like in architecture or engineering. With a better understanding of how nature builds things, we can use that information to build our own things. Now, if we go back and look at the shape of atoms, then they start to make sense. Vibrations above atoms make molecules, vibrations above molecules make all the stuff. Vibrations above the stuff create stuff within stuff. It's called
Talking about if we would have knew this if we was a child. I can barely comprehend this right now.
an emulsion. Like this, it creates a moving system with boundaries, allowing more interactions with more stuff. Above that, we get systems that organize and replicate, creating primitive forms.
This guy got beaten up outside of a bar and he became a genius. So Jason Paget, he was brutally beaten outside of a karaoke
Man, somebody need to beat my ass.
bar, and it gave him a concussion in a very rare condition that causes someone to become smarter. So now Jason has acquired savant syndrome. And savant syndrome is basically a condition where a person has remarkable knowledge after suffering a physical or psychological trauma.
Man, I got a case of this. I had a supervisor in the Air Force when we had to load jets, and he couldn't get nothing right until one day he just ran into the wing of the jet, knocked him out. got up and he was the best person ever. I never seen nobody doing stuff like that. So he might have suffered from this syndrome right here. I don't know.
So savant skills are usually found in one or more of 5 major areas. For example, art, musical abilities, logic, mathematics, and spatial skills. So now this guy is a math genius. And Jason says that blow that he took to the back of his head, that it made him see the world in a completely different way. I'd say so. And so this guy is one of only 50 documented people in the world that acquired savant syndrome. There could be other cases out there that have maybe never been reported, but this is definitely a strange story. Comment below what you think and make sure that you click follow.
The future of quantum computers might be in CDs. CDs are a kind of optical storage, meaning that lasers
Do they get scratched up? I don't know how many 90 kids in here, but you know about them CDs get scratched up to where you got to put a little bit of spit on there. But then they came out with the ones where you can kind of repair it, but it was at the end, we wasn't even using CDs no more.
are used to encode data directly onto the disk, and a laser in your computer reads that as it spins. They were pretty popular in the 90s and early 2000s, but fell out because they couldn't hold a lot of storage, only up to like 8 gigs. Researchers are now suggesting adding cells of magnesium oxide, which moonlights as a laxative. Because light bounces off of it in interesting ways. So they want to add magnesium oxide as one of the layers. Because here's the thing, CDs are limited by the light itself, meaning that the data being stored can't be smaller than the wavelengths of light making it or reading it. That would be like having a pasta strainer, but the pasta's too small. Magnesium oxide crystals could help contribute to a technique called wavelength multiplexing, where instead of one laser of one type, different wavelengths of light are used together to create a more densely packed area of data. There's actually a lot of research going into the return of optical discs. It has the potential to store more data in smaller spaces than what we currently use now. That and or adding more layers in a technique called AIE DDPR and just making the discs thicker could bring a few feet of today's drives down to a single CD, which would be great for quantum computers. The paper is free to read online if you're into that sort of thing.
2% of the population cannot read while they're riding in a moving car. The reason why is hilarious. So there's this thing called sensory conflict. It's when one of your senses is telling your brain.
Hold on now. Anybody down here suffer from that? Can any of y'all not read while you ride in a car?
One thing while another sense is telling it something else. When you're in a moving car, your body is telling your brain that you're in motion. But when you try to look at the book that's right in front of you, your eyes are telling your brain that you're standing still. So our brains are really confused. How can we be moving and staying still at the same time? In fact, it's so confused that it assumes that you're having a psychedelic trip. The technology around us is evolving at a way faster pace than our biological bodies are. Our ancestors never had to deal with things like cars, but what they did have were mushrooms. So our brains assume that the reason we're having sensory conflict is because we ate something crazy out in the wilderness. And the reason you get nauseous is because your brain thinks you need to barf up whatever it is you might have accidentally eaten out there. So the next time you get nauseous because you're trying to read while you're in a moving car, just remember that your brain is literally having the experience that you ate something toxic and it's making you hallucinate.
Do you know there are still actual real life people that deny that we have landed on the moon? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous in this day and age that there are still moon landing deniers. I mean, you can literally shoot a laser up into the moon. NASA does it all the time. I mean, duh, it's what they do to measure the distance between two celestial bodies. Come on, people. And we can do it because they left behind some nifty little reflector, and you can take a laser and you yourself can do this. You can shine it right off their reflector that they left there in 1969. I mean, it's so amazing. It's so wonderful, the technology they have to shoot a laser that far. I mean, I didn't know lasers went 238,000 miles because people use that as proof that we've been there because there's a reflector on there and people can shoot the laser at it. And well, if there's a reflection coming back because the moon landing dudes left a big reflector there, well, then that's proof that we've been there. Duh. But you know what's strange is that the most powerful lasers in the world can only go 10 miles. It's kind of strange. And they even came out with more powerful ones than that. Just recently, really recent, the most powerful laser on Earth. And it goes 25 miles. Do you see the problem here? Do you see the problem here? They're telling us that their lasers shoot to the moon that's 238,000 miles away and it's reflecting back, and that's their proof that we've been there. You do the math. I'm done here. Entertainment purposes, of course. I'm just doing this to make you do mental gymnastics to entertain you for the day because I'm a satire clown and I'm just here to entertain. Have a good day. Entertainment only.
So a black hole only needs to be as big as a penny to apparently destroy the entire Earth.
This will, well, it's a teaching moment.
I know about things for black holes. At least I know the whole thing that about black holes and how incredibly destructive they can be.
Black holes get a bad rap, to be honest. In science fiction, they're depicted as all-consuming monsters that are inescapable. But in reality, they're basically like anything else in space. They have gravity, and that gravity will pull on you. But if you have a black hole that has the same mass as, say, the sun, it's not really any more dangerous than the sun is. Sure, a black hole with that mass barreling toward the Earth would consume the Earth. But if a star was barreling toward the Earth, I imagine your death would be a lot more unpleasant. This is all to say, if you can avoid a star or a planet, you'll have no issue avoiding a black hole. They're just harder to see. But you'll definitely notice that they're there before you're in danger.
A black hole the size of a penny is perfectly capable of swallowing the entire Earth.
Alright, so I ran the numbers on this. A black hole the size of a penny has a mass about equal to that of Earth. But that doesn't mean it can swallow the Earth. If such a black hole were near the Earth, it and the Earth would end up either passing by like a gravitational flyby, or the Earth and the black hole would orbit a point exactly between the two of them. On the off chance that it's on a direct collision course, yeah, it'd be pretty bad, if only because it would pass through the Earth and then oscillate back and forth. But it would probably be less bad than an equally massive planet slamming into the Earth. And sure, we could see the planet coming from further away, but there's still nothing you can do about it. And before the commenters think they're smart for insisting the black hole would evaporate nearly instantly, you're not even close. A black hole with Earth's mass would take 3 times 10 to the 50th years to evaporate.
Which means there are invisible tiny dots of death within the galaxy that at any given point we could just disappear in it.
So we actually have no idea if any small black holes exist. The smallest black holes we've ever detected are about 3 times the mass of the sun. And this kind of checks out. The only way we know that black holes can form in today's universe is by stars imploding. And that only happens with stars that are much bigger than the sun, meaning that the remnant that's left behind is also quite heavy. Now, there is the idea that tiny black holes, like the one in this video, might have formed in the very early universe by directly collapsing from matter rather than from pre-existing stars. In fact, if these existed, they would at least partially explain what dark matter is. These are called MACHOs, massive compact halo objects. But theoretical and observational limits constrain how much dark matter can be made of black holes of around this size to be about, at most, 10% of the dark matter. And larger black holes, about 1,000 times heavier, are even less likely, down below the 1% level. This is all to say these baby black holes, if they exist at all, are probably very rare. So I hope that helps the three of you sleep at night.